you will recall, if longtime viewers, watchers, readers of my stuff, I have made good use over the years of an article that the BBC published on the 18th of September, 2002. It was a Wednesday. And the title is More Suicides Under Conservative Rule. Now, there's just a certain logic to this. When conservatives run the economy, it works well for the billionaires and for the corporations, and it does not work well for working people. This is a simple reality. And then the conservatives go ahead and try to make things even worse. You know, like John Kasich in Ohio right now saying, let's jack up the sales tax, which all the poor people pay, and let's reduce the income tax, which the rich people pay. And the hundreds of millions of dollars we will lose by cutting the income tax for rich people in Ohio will make up by raising the sales tax in Ohio on pretty much everything that poor people have to buy. Working people, middle class people, let them pay for it. So this original piece back in 2002, and yes, I am going to bring this to today in just a moment. This is not an op-ed. This is not some commentary by some, liberal commentator or even an economist. This is news reporting by the British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC. And I quote, "The suicide rate increases under conservative government, research suggests." The Australian team analyzed suicide statistics for New South Wales between 1901, when the federal government was established, in 1998. They then looked at the political regimes dominating both state and federal governments in New South Wales. This is the largest of the states in Australia. It's where the city of Sydney is located, which have consistently been either under Labor or conservative control. Researchers took into account periods of drought in World War II because of their economic and psychological impact. After adjusting for these factors, the figures clearly showed, I'm quoting the BBC, the figures clearly showed the highest rates of suicide occurred when both conservative state and federal governments were in power. Conversely, the lowest rates of suicide occurred when state and federal governments were both Labor, that would be liberal. When the conservatives ruled both state and federal governments, men were 17% more likely to commit suicide than when Labor was in power. Women were 40% more likely to kill themselves. This is a 100-year-long longitudinal study. It's absolutely astonishing. They continue, the BBC, rates have been lower, suicide rates have been lower under the Labor governments, but soared under the last conservative regime, which began in 1979 under Margaret Thatcher. Then suicides fell when the more moderate John Major came to rise, and they rose slightly when Tony Blair came to power. They've since fallen. This was back in 2003. Or 2002, excuse me. Overall, they say, and this is how they wrap up the article. Actually, the last sentence is the UK Conservative Party refused to comment on the research. But the paragraph before that reads, overall, they say the figures suggest that 35,000 people would not have died had the Conservatives not been in power. Equivalent to one suicide for every day of the 20th century or two suicides for every day that the Conservatives ruled. Okay, that is the entire 20th century. Now let's look at Greece. Keep in mind, the Republicans are promoting austerity. They're promoting the policies that the Conservatives promoted in the UK. Smaller government, less social safety net, work harder, earn less money if you're in the bottom 50% or the bottom 90%, and work less hard and make more money if you're in the top 10%, particularly if you make your living, if you make your money with money, if you're a capitalist. Very low taxes on capitalists. So what happened when Greece, when austerity, conservative austerity, the stuff that Paul Ryan wants us to suffer under, the stuff that John Boehner wants us to suffer under, the stuff that Mitch McConnell wants us to suffer under, the stuff that President Obama is pushing back against right now with his budget proposals, and the Republicans are basically laughing at him. saying, no way, we're not going to do that. We are going to cut Social Security, the Republicans say. We are going to voucherize Medicare, the Republicans say. They wrote it into the rules of the House of Representatives that when Social Security disability runs out of money in the next 24 months, that they cannot move money out of the Social Security retirement fund into the disability fund, which they've done dozens of times, or well over a dozen times. Ronald Reagan did it twice. George W. Bush did it once, or at least Congress did under them. But no, they're not going to allow themselves to do that, so they're going to create this phony crisis so that they can use that as an excuse to cut Social Security. The Republicans are all about austerity. John Kasich imposing austerity in Ohio. Sam Brownback in Kansas imposing austerity. What happened? He blew $1 billion hole in the side of his in the side of his state's budget. But hey, the Koch brothers lives in Kansas, and their income taxes, their state income taxes, went way down. So, bringing it back to today, this is an article by Andrea Germanos, who is a staff writer over at commondreams.org. The headline: Austerity linked to 30-year high in Greek suicides. Austerity measures imposed on Greece in 2011 correspond to a significant spike in suicides, health researchers have found. They found that June 2011, this was published in the online journal BMJ Open, U.S., Scottish, and Greek researchers looked at these stats from 1983 to 2012, and during that 30-year period, they looked at all the suicides. 2012 had the highest months of suicide. Starting in June 11th, when the second round of austerity measures rolled out, this is when people started getting laid off. Greek government employees got laid off. People started losing their health care. It was limited, term limited to 1 year. You could have health insurance for 1 year, and after that, the Greek government didn't pay for it, did away with free food, did away with free health care, did away with housing support, cut the minimum wage, cut retirement benefits by 30-40%. The researchers found that June 2011, when a second round of austerity measures, this Republican economics rolled out, quote, marked the beginning of significant, abrupt, and sustained increases in total suicides. Male suicides rose by 19%. Total suicides rose by 36%. A lot of women killing themselves. Suicides by women in Greece also underwent an abrupt and sustained increase in May of 2011 following austerity-related events, wrote the researchers. Conversely, the study found that during a time of economic prosperity, now this would be economic prosperity for the average working person, because right now Greece has economic prosperity for the very rich, but the average working person is screwed. Conversely, the study found that a time of economic prosperity in January of 2002, when the euro launched, corresponded with a 27% decrease in suicide. Conservative rule, suicides go up. Why do suicides go up? Because life gets hard for everybody except the top 10%. The bottom 90%, the bottom 99%, but in particular the bottom 90%, life gets rough under Republican conservative austerity. And it drives up suicides, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in Australia, now Greece. We're seeing this all over the place. And I'm guessing if we were to look at the United States, you would see the exact same statistics. It's time to end the Republican insanity. Another part of the Republican insanity appears to be Chris Christie and Rand Paul, two guys who will never be president of the United States, going off on these weird, oh yeah, vaccines, it's a choice.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Maybe if you want to have yellow fever vaccine, because we don't have a yellow fever problem, but measles, that should not be a choice.